Hi, my name is Mike Ward. I'm the Global Director of Content for Informa Pharma Intelligence's Insights portfolio business. We're here at the Biotech Showcase in San Francisco. This is where the great and good, the movers and the shakers of the industry get together to look forward to what's happening in the coming year, where companies get an opportunity to speak to new investors or potential partners. I'm joined by Scott Salka, who's the CEO of AmpliPhi, which is a San Diego-based company, and you're here for that particular purpose.
Exactly, looking for new investors, talking to existing investors, and talking to potential partners.
So AmpliPhi, it's had an interesting history, but as you mentioned earlier, operational, been in operation for the last 3 years. So where is AmpliPhi at the moment, and what progress can we expect to see this year?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, we have kind of an interesting history in that we actually acquired a couple of companies to start AmpliPhi. So it's somewhat of a roll-up of existing phage technologies. So the company started decidedly preclinical, really with an eye towards pulling everything together that were required to get phage into man. So we're finally there. So we built a manufacturing facility in Slovenia and Ljubljana a couple of years ago, got that certified, manufactured clinical trial material. So the company is now a clinical stage company. Our first product is a cocktail of phages against Staph aureus infections, and we completed 2 phase 1s in 2016, one in the US with the US Army, and one in Australia in patients with chronic rhinosinusitis. And we are currently manufacturing a Pseudomonas cocktail to treat Pseudomonas infections, and we plan to take that into phase 1 studies in 2017. And our most advanced program will be a phase 2 study starting in 2017 to treat patients with chronic rhinosinusitis or sinus infections.
Right. So the technology itself, where did that originate?
So the technology itself is a natural product. So bacteriophage, or phage as we call them, are the natural predator for bacteria. So they were first, they weren't identified or characterized until about 100 years ago. And for several decades after they were discovered, they were actually used as antibacterials, although we didn't have the technology to finally characterize those phage. But most of the major pharmaceutical companies that exist today that have roots going back to the early 20th century sold bacteriophage to treat infection. It works sometimes, but not all the time, because it was a fairly dirty preparation. So with the advent of small molecule antibiotics in the 40s, this phage was left behind. This was the era of chemistry, of plastics, of synthetic stuff. So bacteriophage got left behind, except for in the former Soviet states. The Soviet Union continued to advance bacteriophage, and so, which is why our production facilities in Slovenia, because there was particular expertise there. So we are, now that we have much better modern tools for the characterization, the appropriate characterization of phage and the manufacture of phage, we think now is the time to come back and revisit this, taking advantage of this ancient predator-prey relationship to very selectively deplete bacteria. You think about, we're learning more and more about the microbiome and how important a healthy microbiome is to human health, whether it's mental health or physical health, metabolic health. But when we treat somebody with a broad spectrum antibiotic, we lay waste to that microbiome. And we hope that it gets repopulated with those good bacteria, again, in the proportions that they existed before. So with bacteriophage, because they're so selective, it gives us the opportunity to treat infection without touching the microbiome. So we think it's a very promising way forward. And it also addresses the rising problem of bacterial resistance to existing antibiotics. So multi-drug resistant bacteria are still susceptible to phage attack.
So do you have any partners at the moment for this, or are you still working this on your own?
We have academic partners, very important academic partners. So we work in partnership with the Royal Brompton Institute for our cystic fibrosis program, with the University of Leicester. Both of those are in the UK for our C. difficile program. We had a great, and still have a great partnership with University of Adelaide and the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. That's where we conducted our phase 1 study for chronic rhinosinusitis. We don't have any commercial partners yet.
Right, okay. And if we sort of look at the progress the company's made. You're on the New York Stock Exchange. Do you have enough financial resource to be able to actually fulfill your ambitions?
We don't. So we will continue to have to raise money. One of the blessing and the curse of being a publicly traded company is that your valuation is marked, by the minute during trading days, and it's been a tough time for small cap biotech companies over the last year or so. So we have a relatively small market cap, which puts constraints on how much money we can raise, and so we have to be careful and kind of match our ability to raise capital with our spend. So we could certainly move a lot faster and help patients sooner if we had freer access to capital.
But in this you mentioned about sort of antimicrobial resistance. That's an area where we can see there's quite a lot of public-private partnerships, or there's a lot of charities, putting money into that area. Is that something that you have taken advantage of, or would seek to do so?
Yes, we have taken advantage of it. I completely forgot to mention one of our very important partners, and it's part of this kind of notion of a public-private partnership. The U.S. Army has been a partner for quite some time, and in fact they conducted one of the phase 1 studies here in the U.S. with our Staph aureus cocktail. So we'll continue working with entities like the U.S. Army, and as you mentioned, there are other charities, there are other institutes that are very interested in emerging resistance to antibiotics and what this potentially can mean. I would say probably 2 years ago the company was too early in its development. A lot of these companies wanted to see a clinical footprint, and I think now that we're there, you'll see us form some of these partnerships that will bring capital to the company.
Sure. And looking at sort of partnerships, you sort of mentioned commercial partnerships. What would you actually be looking for in a potential partner?
For a commercial partner, what we look for is not only resources, of course, but expertise in a particular area, the ability to, once the drug is approved, to market that drug, manufacture it at scale and market that drug.
Okay, good. And for sort of technological partners, are you looking to bring in other assets into your business?
That's one of the things that we're looking at while we're here, and that's typically from much smaller companies or from academic institutes, because there really are no bacteriophage programs inside major pharmaceutical companies or even large biotech companies. It's an area that's re-emerging. So the cutting edge technology exists in academia and at small companies like ours.
Okay, so just one final question. So what's the biggest challenge facing AmpliPhi over the next 12 months?
It's definitely capital, access to capital, and the ability to secure sufficient capital to keep our programs moving. And really our goal is to help patients that have profound antibiotic resistant infections, and the only way we can do that is by accessing the capital. So that's our biggest challenge.
Okay, well good luck with those searches.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.